Eliza Morgan stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her once vibrant chestnut hair hung limply around her pale face. At 18, she looked older than her years, worn down by endless chores and sleepless nights spent studying. Outside the door, her stepmother's shrill voice called out another demand. "Eliza! The breakfast dishes aren't going to wash themselves. And Victoria needs her dance costume ironed before her recital." With a deep sigh, Eliza splashed cold water on her face. "Coming, Diane," she called, forcing her voice to remain steady. It hadn't always been this way. Before her father's unexpected death 3 years ago, life had been different. Thomas Morgan had been a loving father who encouraged Eliza's dreams of becoming a doctor. Even when he married Diane Reynolds, a widow with twin daughters Victoria and Valerie, he'd made sure Eliza felt secure in her place within their blended family, but cancer took him quickly, leaving behind a house paid for with his life insurance, a modest savings account, and a family that began to fracture the moment the funeral ended. Diane's true colors emerged rapidly, revealing a woman determined to secure the best for her biological daughters while relegating her stepdaughter to servitude. "I'm only teaching you responsibility," Diane would say whenever Eliza protested. "Your father spoiled you rotten. The real world isn't going to hand you everything on a silver platter." Meanwhile, Victoria and Valerie, both 16, enjoyed every advantage: private dance lessons, expensive clothes, and constant attention. They never lifted a finger around the house, their homework was always too important for chores, and their social lives remained packed with activities Eliza could only glimpse from the kitchen window as she scrubbed pots. The family's modest home in suburban Millfield looked picture-perfect from the outside. Neighbors saw a grieving widow bravely raising 3 teenage girls. Few noticed that only one girl mowed the lawn, shoveled snow, and carried groceries. Even fewer realized that Eliza's college fund, carefully built by her father, had mysteriously diminished, with Diane claiming poor investment returns during tough economic times. Yet despite everything, Eliza clung to her father's memory and his final words to her: "Your mind is your greatest asset, sunshine. Never let anyone convince you otherwise." So she studied after midnight, maintained perfect grades, and applied for every scholarship available. Education was her ticket out, even if she had to crawl through broken glass to reach it. What Eliza didn't realize was that fate had been watching and wheels were already in motion that would change everything. The bus rattled over potholes as Eliza checked her chemistry homework one last time. Around her, classmates chatted about weekend plans and dating drama, worlds away from her reality of endless chores and late-night study sessions. "Hey, college girl," said a friendly voice as someone dropped into the seat beside her. Eliza looked up to see Marcus Chen, her lab partner and possibly the only person at Millfield High who understood her situation. His grandmother had raised him after his parents died in a car accident, and although Mrs. Chen was loving, their financial struggles mirrored Eliza's own. "Hey yourself," she replied, managing a genuine smile. "Ready for Harrison's pop quiz? You know about it?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "He does one every third Friday. It's practically tradition." Marcus groaned. "I was going to review during lunch." "I can help," Eliza offered. "The cafeteria's quiet during first lunch period." "You're a lifesaver." He peered at her face. "You look exhausted, though. Stepmonster on the warpath again?" Eliza shrugged. "Victoria's dance recital is this weekend. The house has to be spotless for her special guests, plus I'm cooking for 10. While maintaining a 4.0 GPA, Marcus said, shaking his head. "You know that's not normal, right? What you're dealing with?" "It's fine," Eliza said automatically. "Just 2 more months until graduation." The bus pulled up to Millfield High, and Eliza gathered her books. As they walked toward the entrance, Victoria and Valerie drove past in the shiny used Audi Diane had bought them for their 16th birthday. They didn't even glance Eliza's way as they parked in the student lot. "Must be nice," Marcus muttered. "It's fine," Eliza repeated. Her mantra for surviving first period was AP Chemistry with Mr. Harrison, one of the few teachers who recognized Eliza's potential. As predicted, he announced a pop quiz, causing collective groans from everyone except Eliza. "Ms. Morgan," he said as he collected the papers, "could you stay after class?" When the room emptied, Mr. Harrison perched on the edge of his desk. "Your application to the Westlake Scholarship was exceptional," he said. The committee was impressed. Eliza's heart skipped. The Westlake Scholarship would cover full tuition at State University's pre-med program, her dream. "But," she prompted, sensing hesitation. "But they need a parent or guardian to attend the finalist interview next Thursday." "It's mandatory." Eliza's stomach dropped. "Next Thursday? At what time?" 7 p.m. The exact time of the twins' showcase at the expensive private arts academy Diane had enrolled them in. There was no way Diane would miss it for something concerning Eliza. "I'll figure something out," she said, though she had no idea how. That evening, Eliza stood at the kitchen sink scrubbing pans while her stepsisters lounged in the living room watching reality TV. She'd completed her homework during study hall, knowing evening time was never her own. "Eliza." Diane's voice called from her bedroom. "I need you to organize my closet. The donation truck is coming tomorrow." "I'm still finishing the dishes," Eliza called back. Diane appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. At 43, she maintained her appearance meticulously, her blonde hair expertly colored and styled, her clothes tastefully expensive. "The dishes can wait." "This can't." "Actually," Eliza said, gathering her courage, "I need to talk to you about something important. I'm a finalist for the Westlake Scholarship. It would cover my entire tuition at State." Diane's expression didn't change. "That's nice. They need you to come to an interview with me next Thursday at 7. "Impossible," Diane dismissed immediately. "That's the twins' showcase." "It's mandatory," Eliza pressed. "Without it, I can't get the scholarship." "Then I guess you won't get the scholarship," Diane said indifferently. "Your father left enough for community college. That should be sufficient." "But the money's nearly gone," Eliza said, her voice rising slightly. "And you know how much medical school would." "Don't take that tone with me," Diane snapped. "Your father would be disappointed in your entitlement. Now, my closet needs organizing, and Victoria needs her blue costume fixed. The sequins are loose." As Diane walked away, Eliza gripped the edge of the sink, knuckles white. For a brief moment, she imagined throwing the soapy sponge across the room, screaming until the neighbors called the police, exposing 3 years of neglect and emotional abuse. Instead, she dried her hands and headed upstairs to tackle Diane's closet, fighting back tears that would solve nothing. What she didn't notice was Victoria lingering in the hallway, having overheard everything, an unreadable expression on her face. The following Tuesday, Eliza sat alone at lunch, reviewing notes while eating a hastily made sandwich. Her concentration broke when someone set a tray down opposite her. Looking up, she found herself staring at Victoria, who'd never voluntarily sought her company at school. Victoria's blonde hair was pulled into a perfect ponytail, her makeup flawless as always. Unlike her more outgoing twin, Victoria possessed a quieter nature that sometimes made her seem thoughtful rather than merely entitled. "We need to talk," Victoria said without preamble. Eliza closed her notebook. "About what?" "The scholarship interview." Victoria glanced around to ensure no one was listening. "I heard you and Mom talking. And?" Eliza couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. "Come to gloat." Victoria flinched slightly. "Actually, I think I can help." Eliza's suspicion must have shown on her face because Victoria sighed. "Look, I know we're not close. But I'm not blind, Eliza. What's happening at home isn't right. You're just noticing this now?" Eliza asked incredulously. Victoria looked down, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "I've noticed for a while. It was easier to ignore it. To pretend it was normal." She met Eliza's eyes again. "But stopping you from getting to college?" That's crossing a line. Why do you suddenly care? Because Dad would have cared. The unexpected mention of Eliza's father caught her off guard. Victoria almost never referenced him. Your dad, Victoria continued quietly, was the only father I ever knew. My biological father left when we were babies. Thomas, your dad, he taught me how to ride a bike. He came to every recital. He never once made me feel like I wasn't really his daughter. She swallowed hard. And I've been sitting by while my mother does exactly that to you. Eliza remained silent, unsure how to respond to this sudden vulnerability. Anyway, Victoria said, composing herself, I have a plan. For your interview. What kind of plan? Aunt Sarah. Aunt Sarah was Diane's younger sister, the black sheep of the family who'd chosen travel and adventure over marriage and stability. She visited rarely, but when she did, she treated all three girls equally, bringing exotic gifts and fascinating stories. Mom always keeps Aunt Sarah away from school events because they fight, Victoria explained. But legally, Sarah is listed as your emergency contact. I checked your file in the office when I worked there last semester. How does that help? Sarah's in town next week. Mom doesn't know yet. I found out because she messaged me on Instagram. Victoria leaned forward. If Sarah takes you to the interview, the scholarship committee won't know the difference. She can say she's your guardian. Eliza's mind raced. But won't Diane find out? Not if we're careful. I'll cover for you at home. I'll say you're working on a project at the library. Mom never checks, she just assumes you're doing chores somewhere. Why would you do this? Eliza couldn't help asking. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Because someday, I might need help too. Mom's not always kind to us either, when we don't meet her expectations. She stood up, gathering her tray. I'll text Sarah today. Don't mention this to anyone, especially Valerie. She tells Mom everything. As Victoria walked away, Eliza sat stunned. The interaction had lasted less than 5 minutes, but it had shattered her understanding of the family dynamic. Perhaps her steps had eyes and hearts after all. At least one of them did. That night, as Eliza folded laundry in her tiny bedroom, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hi Eliza, it's Aunt Sarah. Vicky told me about your situation. I'll be there Thursday at 6:30 to pick you up for your interview. Wear something professional. Don't worry about Diane, I've been handling my sister since we were in diapers. This is what family actually does for each other. P.S. Delete this message after reading. For the first time in months, Eliza felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps she wasn't as alone as she'd thought. Thursday evening arrived with a nervous energy that made Eliza's hands shake as she prepared dinner. The twins' showcase was at 7:30, but Diane insisted they arrive early to secure good seats and socialize with the right people. If all went according to plan, they would leave at 6:15, giving Eliza 15 minutes to change before Aunt Sarah arrived. Remember to clean up before you start your homework, Diane instructed as she applied a final coat of lipstick. And the guest bathroom needs fresh towels. Yes, Diane, Eliza said automatically, stirring pasta sauce that the family would eat upon returning. She would have cold leftovers later. Victoria caught her eye briefly before turning away. They hadn't spoken privately since their lunch conversation, maintaining the careful distance that characterized their relationship, but Eliza had noticed small changes, chores mysteriously completed before she got to them, a granola bar and apple appearing in her backpack, a textbook she needed placed on her desk. At 6:10, Diane called for her daughters. Girls. Time to go. Victoria, where's your portfolio? Got it, Mom, Victoria answered, appearing in an elegant blue dress that complemented her eyes. As Diane turned to fuss with Valerie's hair, Victoria silently mouthed, "Good luck," to Eliza. The front door closed behind them at 6:17, and Eliza sprang into action. She showered quickly, put on the one nice outfit she owned, a simple black skirt and white blouse she'd purchased at a thrift store for debate tournaments, and attempted to tame her hair into something presentable. At 6:32, a distinctive honk sounded from the driveway. Eliza looked out her window to see a bright red convertible with Aunt Sarah waving from the driver's seat. Unlike her older sister, Sarah Reynolds embraced bohemian style and unapologetic individuality. At 40, she wore her hair in a stylish bob streaked with purple, and her career as a travel photographer had left her with sun-weathered skin and laugh lines around her eyes. When Eliza slid into the passenger seat, Sarah reached over and squeezed her hand. "Look at you," she said warmly. "The spitting image of your mother. She was brilliant too, you know." The mention of her mother, who had died when Eliza was only 4, brought unexpected tears to her eyes. Thomas had rarely spoken of his first wife, especially after marrying Diane. "Thank you for doing this," Eliza said, buckling her seatbelt as Sarah reversed out of the driveway. "Honey, thank you for giving me a legitimate reason to interfere in Diane's perfect life." Sarah's expression turned serious. "Victoria told me what's been happening. Why didn't you call me?" "I didn't think," Eliza faltered. "Diane always made it seem like you were the irresponsible one." Sarah laughed without humor. "Diane has always excelled at controlling narratives. But let's focus on tonight. Tell me about this scholarship." As they drove to State University's campus, Eliza explained the Westlake Scholarship's details. By the time they arrived at the administration building, she felt calmer, bolstered by Sarah's genuine interest and encouraging comments. The interview itself passed in a blur. The committee consisted of 3 professors and 2 alumni donors who asked questions about Eliza's academic goals, community service, and personal challenges. When asked about her home support system, Sarah smoothly interjected. As Eliza's guardian, she said confidently, "I can assure you that our family is immensely proud of her achievements despite significant challenges. Her father, my brother-in-law, would have been especially proud of her resilience." The committee seemed impressed by both Eliza's responses and Sarah's apparent devotion, unaware of the complex reality behind their polished presentation. "We'll notify all finalists within 2 weeks," the committee chair said as they concluded. "But Ms. Morgan, I must say your application and interview were both exceptional." Outside in the warm spring evening, Eliza felt lightheaded with relief and possibility. "I think it went well," she said cautiously. "It went brilliantly," Sarah corrected, linking arms with her. "Now, I'm guessing you're supposed to be home preparing for the royal family's return, but I propose we celebrate instead. Ice cream." The spontaneous detour to an ice cream parlor felt both rebellious and perfectly natural. Over hot fudge sundaes, Sarah asked questions no one had asked Eliza in years, about her interests beyond academics, her dreams beyond medical school, her memories of her father. "I've been a terrible aunt," Sarah said finally, setting down her spoon. "I knew Diane could be difficult, but I had no idea she was treating you like Cinderella." "That stops now." "What do you mean?" Eliza asked, suddenly anxious. "I mean I'm not disappearing again. I've been offered a teaching position at the community college starting next fall, photography and visual arts. I was planning to turn it down, but now I think I'll accept." Sarah's eyes gleamed with determination. "It's time I played a more active role in my nieces' lives, all 3 of you." "Diane won't like that," Eliza warned. "Diane hasn't liked me since I told Tommy he could do better than her 20 years ago," Sarah retorted. "But here's something you should know, your fathers will had specific provisions for your education. If Diane hasn't been honoring those, there could be legal consequences." The implications hung between them, both exciting and terrifying. Before Eliza could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Victoria, "Showcase running long. Won't be home till 10. "Everything okay?" Eliza replied quickly, "All good. Interview went well. With S now. We should get you home," Sarah said, noticing the time. "But this conversation isn't over. I'm staying at the Millfield through Sunday. Let's meet again properly this time." As they pulled into the driveway, the house dark and quiet, Sarah handed Eliza a business card. "My cell, email, and socials. Use them. And Eliza," she added softly, "your father would be so proud of the young woman you've become." Those words, more than anything else that had happened, made Eliza feel truly seen for the first time in years. What she didn't know was that this night marked the beginning of changes that would ripple through her life with consequences no one could have anticipated, especially for Diane. 2 days after the interview, Eliza arrived home from school to find Diane waiting in the kitchen, her expression thunderous. "Care to explain this?" she demanded, slapping a piece of paper onto the counter. Eliza approached cautiously, recognizing a bank statement. Her stomach dropped when she saw it was for the account that had supposedly held her college fund. "I don't understand," she said carefully. "Don't play innocent," Diane snapped. "Sarah Reynolds called the bank pretending to be me. They sent this to confirm the account inquiry. She's poking around in our financial business." Eliza maintained a neutral expression. "I didn't know anything about that." "Really? You didn't happen to mention your college fund during your little ice cream social? The one you were having while supposedly studying at the library? So she knew about that too." Eliza glanced toward the stairs, wondering if Victoria had betrayed her after all. "Victoria didn't tell me," Diane said, following her gaze. "Mrs. Peterson saw you in that ridiculous convertible and called to make sure everything was all right. Imagine my surprise when I learned my irresponsible sister was in town and meeting with my stepdaughter behind my back." Eliza straightened her shoulders. "Aunt Sarah took me to my scholarship interview. The one you refused to attend. So you went behind my back? After everything I've done for you? What exactly have you done for me, Diane?" The words escaped before Eliza could stop them, years of resentment fueling her courage. "Used me as free labor. Drained the college fund my father left me. Treated me like an unwelcome guest in my own home." Diane's face flushed with anger. "How dare you? I took care of you when no one else would." "My father wanted you to take care of me," Eliza corrected. "And he left money for you to do it, money you've been spending on yourself and the twins. You ungrateful little, is it true?" Victoria's voice interrupted from the doorway. She stood there in her dance clothes, having apparently returned early from practice. "Did you really spend Eliza's college fund?" Diane's expression shifted instantly. "Victoria, sweetheart, you don't understand adult financial matters. Thomas left investments that performed poorly. It wasn't my fault." "Then you won't mind showing us the investment records," came another voice. Aunt Sarah stepped in behind Victoria, her expression uncharacteristically serious. "As executor of Tommy's will, I should have been monitoring those accounts all along. My mistake." The color drained from Diane's face. "You have no right to barge into my home. Actually, according to Thomas's will, this house is held in trust for all 3 girls until the youngest turns 25, Sarah said calmly. "I've spent the past 48 hours with a very interested lawyer reviewing documents I should have paid attention to years ago." Victoria moved to stand beside Eliza, her presence a silent statement of solidarity. "Mom, is this true? Did Dad Thomas leave the house for all of us?" Diane's composure cracked further. "Victoria, go to your room. This doesn't concern you." "It absolutely concerns her," Sarah countered. "It concerns all 3 girls. Thomas structured his estate to provide equally for everyone, the house, the education funds, everything." "You're lying," Diane hissed. Sarah pulled out her phone. "Would you like to discuss this with Gerald Patterson? He's Thomas's attorney, and he's been most helpful in explaining how the trusts should have been administered." She held up the phone. "He's on standby for a conference call." The standoff lingered for several tense seconds before Diane's shoulders slumped. "Fine. There were separate accounts. I borrowed from them temporarily." "Borrowed?" Eliza echoed incredulously. "The girls needed dance lessons, proper clothes, opportunities, and you needed spa weekends and designer handbags," Sarah finished. "While Eliza worked like a servant in her own home." "What happens now?" Victoria asked quietly. Sarah smiled grimly. "Now, we have choices to make. Legally, Diane has breached her fiduciary duty as trustee. That has consequences. You wouldn't dare, Diane whispered. Try me, Sarah replied, her voice steel beneath the casual tone. As your late husband's executor, I have legal obligations to these girls. Obligations I've neglected for too long. The confrontation might have escalated further if not for the arrival of Valerie, who burst through the front door chattering about dance practice before freezing at the tableau in the kitchen. What's going on? She asked, eyes darting between the four women. Family meeting, Sarah said smoothly. Long overdue. What followed was 2 hours of painful revelations as Sarah methodically laid out the details of Thomas Morgan's will, the intended distribution of his assets, and the extensive discrepancies between what should have happened and what actually did. Throughout the conversation, Victoria remained by Eliza's side while Valerie gradually moved away from her mother, shock and betrayal evident on her face. So you've been lying to all of us? Valerie finally asked, her voice small. Even us? I did what I thought was best, Diane insisted. Best for whom? Victoria demanded. As the evening progressed, the family structure that had existed for 3 years crumbled entirely. By midnight, Diane had retreated to her bedroom. Sarah had established temporary residence in the guest room, to ensure transparency moving forward, and the 3 girls sat together in the living room, united for perhaps the first time since becoming stepsisters. I'm sorry, Valerie said, looking directly at Eliza. I didn't know. Neither did I, Victoria added, not the whole story, anyway. Eliza, emotionally exhausted but strangely liberated, found herself smiling at her stepsisters. I know. And it wasn't your responsibility. It wasn't yours either, Sarah called from the kitchen where she was making tea. The adults failed here, not you girls. That night marked a seismic shift in the Morgan Reynolds household, one that would continue to reverberate in the weeks ahead as Sarah systematically dismantled the false narrative Diane had constructed and replaced it with Thomas's actual intentions for his blended family. For Eliza, lying awake in her bed long after the house had gone quiet, the future suddenly seemed filled with possibilities that had nothing to do with escape and everything to do with justice. The weeks following what the girls came to call the reckoning brought dramatic changes to the Morgan Reynolds household. Sarah temporarily moved in, occupying the guest room and assuming the role of mediator as the family navigated its new reality. Diane, faced with potential legal action for misappropriation of trust funds, agreed to a restructuring plan that Sarah and Gerald Patterson devised. She would remain in the house but no longer serve as trustee for the girls' finances. Instead, remaining assets would be managed professionally, with transparent reporting to all parties. It's not about punishment, Sarah explained one evening as the 4 women sat in the living room. It's about correction and moving forward. Diane, subdued and resentful, had little choice but to comply. The alternative legal proceedings that could result in criminal charges was far worse. She retreated into herself, spending more time at her part-time job at an interior design boutique and less time micromanaging the household. For Eliza, the changes manifested in both small and significant ways. Her bedroom door now had a lock. Household chores were distributed equitably among all 3 girls via a rotation chart Sarah created. Most importantly, her future was secure again. The Westlake Scholarship Committee called, she announced one morning in early May, breathless with excitement as she burst into the kitchen where Victoria was making toast. I got it. Full tuition. Victoria squealed and hugged her, their former distance dissolved by recent events. That's amazing. Did you tell Aunt Sarah yet? Tell me what? Sarah appeared in the doorway, coffee mug in hand. When Eliza shared her news, Sarah's face lit up with pride. Tommy would be over the moon, she said, eyes glistening. This calls for celebration. Dinner out tonight, all of us. Even Mom? Victoria asked hesitantly. Sarah nodded firmly. Even Diane. We're still a family, just reconfigured. The celebration dinner that evening at Millfield's nicest restaurant marked the first time the restructured family appeared in public together. Diane, making a visible effort, offered Eliza a stilted congratulations. Valerie, who had been the slowest to adjust to the new dynamics, presented Eliza with a card signed by her dance troupe. "They all think you're amazing for working so hard," she explained awkwardly. "I might have told them about your scholarship and everything." "Everything?" Eliza asked, raising an eyebrow. Valerie blushed. "Not everything. Just that you're really smart and worked really hard even when things were tough." As graduation approached, Eliza found herself in the unexpected position of having advocates. Sarah attended her honors ceremony, cheering loudly when Eliza was recognized as salutatorian. Victoria helped her shop for a graduation dress, insisting on treating when Eliza hesitated over the price tag. "Consider it partial repayment," Victoria said firmly. "Besides, I'm starting to make decent money with my photography side hustle." This was another unexpected development, Victoria discovering a passion for photography under Sarah's mentorship, distinct from the dance career Diane had pushed her toward for years. The morning of graduation dawned bright and clear. Eliza stood in front of her mirror, cap and gown laid out on the bed, reflecting on the whirlwind of the past month. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. That it was Diane, looking uncomfortable but determined. "May I speak with you?" Eliza nodded cautiously. Diane closed the door and stood awkwardly in the middle of the room. "I wanted to say that is," I think she faltered, then straightened her shoulders. "I was wrong. About many things." Eliza remained silent, waiting. "Your father would be very proud today," Diane continued. "And I realize I've failed to honor his memory or his wishes. That wasn't fair to you." It wasn't exactly an apology, but from Diane, it represented significant growth. Eliza considered her response carefully. "Thank you for saying that," she said finally. "Dad would want us to find a way forward." Diane nodded, visibly relieved that Eliza hadn't rejected her overture. She reached into her pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "This was your mother's. Thomas kept it for you to have on your graduation day." Eliza accepted the box with trembling hands. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant shaped like a microscope, a nod to her mother's career as a research scientist. "He never forgot her," Diane said quietly. "Just as he would never have forgotten you." As Diane left, closing the door softly behind her, Eliza fastened the necklace around her throat. The pendant rested just above her heart, a tangible connection to both parents she had lost. At the ceremony, sitting among her classmates as the principal delivered his address, Eliza found herself scanning the audience. There they were, her unconventional family occupying a full row. Sarah waving enthusiastically, Victoria filming with her camera, Valerie holding a bouquet, and even Diane, sitting slightly apart but undeniably present. When her name was called, the cheers from that row drowned out all others. As she crossed the stage to receive her diploma, Eliza felt the weight of the past 3 years lifting. She had survived. More than that, she had triumphed. The graduation party at home later that afternoon brought additional surprises. Marcus arrived with his grandmother, who immediately bonded with Sarah over gardening tips. Mr. Harrison presented Eliza with a vintage copy of Gray's Anatomy, inscribed with good wishes for medical school. And Gerald Patterson, Thomas's attorney, delivered an envelope containing a letter her father had written before his death, to be given to her upon high school graduation. Eliza excused herself to the porch swing to read it privately, tears flowing freely as she absorbed her father's words of pride, love, and confidence in her future. The final paragraph seemed especially prophetic. "Life will challenge you, sunshine, sometimes unfairly. But remember that darkness never lasts forever, and karma has a way of balancing accounts when we least expect it. Stay true to yourself, work hard, and know that real family, whether bound by blood or choice, will always find its way back to you. I may not be there to see the remarkable woman you'll become, but I will be watching, and I will be proud. All my love, always, Dad." As Eliza folded the letter, she noticed Victoria watching her from the doorway. "You okay?" her stepsister asked softly. Eliza nodded, smiling through her tears. "Better than okay. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The Morgan Reynolds house buzzed with activity as Eliza packed the last of her belongings for the move to medical school. Through the open window, she could hear Sarah directing the loading of furniture into a rental truck, her voice carrying easily across the summer air. "Careful with that bookshelf. It survived 4 years of undergraduate abuse, I won't have it destroyed by careless movers." Eliza smiled, zipping her final suitcase. So much had changed since that fateful spring when Sarah had re-entered their lives like a hurricane, rearranging everything in her path. Diane had eventually moved out, taking a job in another city and maintaining a distant but cordial relationship with her daughters. The house, as stipulated in Thomas's will, remained home base for the girls as they pursued their education. Victoria, now in her senior year at the State University's prestigious art program, had developed a thriving photography business on the side. Her work focusing on blended families had recently been featured in a national magazine. Valerie had surprised everyone by joining the Peace Corps after high school, currently serving in Ecuador and sending regular updates filled with adventures and newfound perspective. And Sarah, having accepted the teaching position, had become the family's unexpected anchor, part aunt, part surrogate mother, part friend to all three girls as they navigated young adulthood. A knock at Eliza's bedroom door interrupted her reflections. "Ready, Doc?" Marcus asked, leaning against the doorframe. Their friendship had evolved into something deeper during college, withstanding the challenges of busy schedules and occasional long distances. "Almost," Eliza replied, glancing around the room that had witnessed both her greatest struggles and her most significant triumphs. "Just saying goodbye." Marcus understood without further explanation. He had been there through everything: the restructuring of her family, the scholarships that funded her education, the late-night study sessions that secured her place in medical school. Now he would be joining her for the next chapter, having accepted a position at an engineering firm in the same city. "Take your time," he said. "I'll help Sarah terrorize the movers." When he had gone, Eliza opened her desk drawer and removed the letter from her father that had sustained her through difficult times. Though she knew the words by heart, she read it once more in this space, coming full circle. As she carefully refolded it, her phone chimed with a